welcome to the Real Podcast. My name is Bryce Bingham. This is Everything Real Estate. I am a local real estate agent here in Drome, the Magic Valley. I have been in real estate for 20 years. I work for Canyon Show Realty, who is owned by Dan Wise and Barry Brackett. Why don't you say hi real quick, Dan?
Hi, Bryce. I just wondered if you knew that some parts of a pine tree are edible.
I didn't know that, but
Are we
I
going now?
yes.
Oh,
This
sorry.
is gonna be great. Tell me a little bit about yourself, Dan, before we go on.
So I've been selling real estate, I guess, for about 30 years. It's been a really good job for me. Um, it's provided me with a decent income and a lot of flexibility in my life, which I enjoy. Barry and I have owned the company for probably 15, 16 years, this company. So, yeah.
I appreciate that, Dan. Um, so I'd just like to jump in and one of the questions that we get asked the most is just how is the market, right? And sometimes people are just asking to be nice or whatever, just like we would ask if they work at a tire shop how things are going. But you get a certain amount of people that are really interested and they want to know things like what are the interest rates? How long is my house going to be on the market if I try and sell it right now? What are sales doing now compared to a year ago? Things like that. So we're going to jump right in and kind of see answer some of these questions. Let's just start with the first main question: is what is the market like today? And so I'm going to give Dan that question. What are your thoughts on this, Dan?
I think it's been pretty slow lately. Um, Real estate, you have to be optimistic. We always feel like things are getting better. And I believe that right now. I think that this spring will be a good time to buy. Interest rates have ticked down a little bit. We just put some people in a home and their rate was 5.75, which is pretty good. Um, I feel like prices are softening a little, and it's more of a buyer's market now than it has been since probably 2018.
Okay, so with that being said, I mean, the market's kind of soft. We always talk about like different things that you need to do to prepare your house to be on the market. Um, what gives us value? What do we do to prepare our house? What can people do?
The thing that we have to help people understand and to be on, just we have to remove the obstacles of selling your house. That means, like, are there maintenance that needs to be done? Does it need to be cleaned? Does it stink? If you can smell it, you can't sell it. Um, some people have dogs or cats or whatever, and those need to be gone for showings and stuff like that. Just things like that, and the cleaner and nicer and more well maintained your home is, the more money you're going to get to a certain extent. Square footage makes a huge difference, and of course, location, location, location. So there you go.
So let's talk a little bit about that location, location, location. Um, I do. I totally believe in this. Location, location, location is an important thing. But I guess one thing I always go to when I am talking to people is price, price, price. And I know that there's a lot of people who struggle with real estate agents, but really that's one of the qualities that we can give you is to be honest with you. And so that's my big thing is price, 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 because you can have a $10 million home on the coast in California, Florida, coastal city, and you can price it at $20 million, and it's not going to sell. It has a great location, but it just doesn't sell because you price it wrong.
Twice too much.
Yeah. So I mean, location, location, location. That's what gave that house the $10 million price. But if you price it at $20 million, it's not going to happen.
Right.
So that's one of my big things when it comes to location, location, location is that's great, but make sure we price it right.
What I would chip in on that is we'll go out on listing appointments and do some research before we get there. We know how much the house is going to bring, really pretty much right on usually every time. But what happens at the listing, the sellers are selling you and they want as much as they can. So sometimes they'll talk you into listing the house a little bit too high, sometimes a lot too high.
And that's happened to everybody.
Yeah, it happens to all realtors. And the thing is that you have to stress to them that, yeah, I mean, this is what I do anyway. I stress to them, sure, we can try this, see what happens. And if it doesn't happen, then we have to start dropping the price. My formula for that is that you start dropping the price, once every 2 weeks, once a month or something, until you start getting two legitimate, real showings a week, and then it'll sell. But if you're not getting any showings, nobody's looking at it, the count on Zillow or whatever isn't going up, then you're too high.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I like to look at too is, or I'd like to address is the fact that you mentioned dropping the price, and that's one thing you taught me is you have to be pretty aggressive in these drops, because one thing that I've learned and that you've taught me and that it's been true is the fact that the longer a house is on the market, the more people wonder about it. Like,
Right.
why isn't it selling? And then it might just not sell because people are like, they look and they're like, oh, it's been 180 days on the market.
There's something
There's
wrong
something
with
wrong
it,
with it.
even though there's not.
There's
It's
not.
just overpriced.
Yeah, and that's a very, very true thing.
Yeah.
So going back to pricing, one of the things that I look at when pricing is you were talking about how people will come in and say, it's worth this much because of this, and they kind of talk you into a price. One thing that I've noticed when that happens is people will say, the house down the street just sold for, um, $400,000, and just a couple months ago. And inevitably, I usually try and look up the house, and I never find it. And then I go back to the people, and they're like, "Oh, well, it's a mile down the road, but just down." I'm like, "No, that's not in your neighborhood anymore." And so that's one factor that I look at. But one thing I'll also look at is the fact that it didn't sell a couple months ago. It sold a year and a half ago, and I don't know how people don't make that connection, or can't figure that out. But so I'll go back and look, and I'll say, okay, it actually sold a year and a half ago, and since then, interest rates may have gone up. Um, Maybe the economy has gone down a little bit. Even certain things like you switch presidents in between then, and that causes a price difference.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, I mean, I guess do you run with that, Dan?
Yeah. I mean, people get bad information. They believe it, but we can verify it. And sometimes you may find that the house across the street sold for 400,000. And every so often there's an anomaly that'll happen, but there's usually some kind of factor. Like the house across the street had a full basement and this one didn't, or something. There's always more to it. So,
Yeah.
um,
And that's what I usually find. There's just always more to the story. And so I guess the moral of that story is probably make sure that you're getting the right information for the day to price your house.
well, and the thing too is we don't want to underprice your house. We want to sell the house for as much as we can.
Yeah, because like
But
you've always told me, we get paid off what it sells for.
yeah, so whether sometimes it might take a year to sell it, and that's fine, but it will end up the market will dictate what the price is going to be.
Okay. So we've talked a little bit about sellers, and so I think maybe we should talk a little bit about buyers. And we talked about how sellers should prepare. Let's talk about the same thing with buyers. How should buyers prepare to buy a home?
Well, it's very simple and very clear cut. I mean, the buyer has to have some money,
Mhm.
one way or another, whether they have cash or a rich grandma, or like most people, they need to go to the bank and get pre-qualified. And if you're thinking about buying a house, you need to start last year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like This doesn't just happen automatically. So you got to get with a good lender, and they'll tell you what kind of dings you have on your credit, how they can fix it, what you need to do. And then because your credit score means so much in life. It really does. And it dictates how much your interest rate is going to be, how much down payment you're going to have to put down. If you have a great credit score, your life's going to be a lot easier. And so get with that, find out the lender, find out what the costs are going to be, and that's my thing is get pre-approved. Because when we write the offer, and I try to do this every time, when I write the offer, I'm going to send a pre-qualification letter from that lender with the offer to the other agent. And that makes your offer so much stronger. It's not even funny. If you think about it, if you had two offers come in on a property and one had a pre-qualification letter and one didn't, which one is the seller going to take?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
so
one with the pre-qual all day long.
mhm.
And that's what people. You've talked about this before too. People will be like, how do you have that buyer, or it feels like you just barely got them, and it's like I've been working with them for 2 years now.
Probably more like 10.
Yeah, sometimes 10 because they were
Yeah.
working on their credit that whole time, and I kind of had to line them out. And that's what Dan is saying by start yesterday or start last year, I guess is what he said, is start doing those things. Find a lender, say, okay, what do I need to do to prepare to do this, and they'll tell you. And sometimes I'll be honest with you, when I first bought a house, I thought my credit was probably terrible, and it was mostly because I didn't feel like I made very much money and I didn't understand credit, and I thought the credit had to do with how much you made, I guess, and it can, because in the fact that you can pay your bills better sometimes if you make more. But I went in and they're like, "Oh, you have pretty good credit." It wasn't like 800, but it was 740, and that helped me out a lot. So understanding those things can really help you.
So I remember when I first got into real estate back in the last century. Anyway, um, I first started
He's
learning.
old.
I first started learning about credit. I thought it was a very unfair way to rate a person. But then, as I was in real estate longer, I realized the people with the 450 credit scores, and no offense if you're one of these people, if you have a 450 credit score and you make an appointment, hey, let's meet at such and such a time at whatever house, they're going to be late or they're not going to show up. They're not going to, they don't follow through. And if you have somebody with an 850 credit score and you say, let's meet at this house at this time, whatever, they're going to be there 15 minutes early. There's
Yeah.
just a difference. And I'm not trying to be mean about it, but credit score is a pretty good judge of a person. Sorry.
Yeah, well, and a lot of times it is. It's a judge maybe of that part of their life. I mean, it might be a judge of the person too. I don't know, but um,
It's just,
people can. I have seen, and it doesn't happen all the time, but I have seen people change too, and they're
mhm.
like,
Oh, yeah.
because they really have that desire, and
Yeah.
they're like,
It's one thing I always say is, your credit score is like losing weight. Um, Man, next year I'm gonna have my credit score up and whatever, or next year I'm gonna lose 40 pounds. Probably not. My credit score is gonna be the same. My weight's gonna be the same.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
that they're habits that people get into, and that's just the way it is.
yeah,
So
yeah. It's hard to break those habits, but every once in a while you
yeah,
find
yeah,
someone
you'll
who can
have
do it.
somebody who's had and that's where, I mean, I've worked with people like for 10 years before, and you slowly, slowly get them changed over to, getting rid of the $1,000 a month car payment and stuff like that. Another thing about buyers too that I always tell people, um, figure out what your payment's going to be. Your lender can help you with that. So you find out what exactly your payment's going to be, and then go back and figure out how much money you bring in. And your house payment should not be more than 25% of that number of whatever you and your wife or whoever bringing in. If it's more than 25%, then you better like macaroni and cheese if something goes wrong, because that's it. So just I don't and banks will let you go pretty much 50% debt to income ratio.
And that's what I was thinking about when you're saying that, because it's scary. It's kind of scary how far banks let you go, and that doesn't mean it's the right thing. Just because they
Right,
let you do it
right,
doesn't mean it's
right,
right.
right.
So to conclude today, we've given you a little bit of information on buying and selling homes. We'll be here weekly. I'm not sure which day that we'll be here, but I'm going to try and do it the same day every week once we get going. Like I said, I've sold real estate here in the Magic Valley for 19 years. I do work for Canyon Trail Realty. This is going to be an informational podcast, but it's also obviously a little bit promotional. I need to promote myself and see if I can get some business and let people know what I do. So if you want to call me, my number is 208 948 5779. The office number here is 208-324-3354. You can ask for me or anybody. You might have a agent that you work with here, but I appreciate your time, and we'll see you next week.